Hey guys, this is Rocking3 bringing another commentary Forza 5. Today what I'm going to try to do is show you how I tune a car and the parts that I buy for that so that I can tune it. I'm going to try to go through this as quick as possible. Feel free to rewatch this or pause it at certain spots. The car that I'm going to work on today is this Toyota GT86. And I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm going to get in the car and then I'm going to go to upgrade. So the thing about Forza is you want as many adjustable parts as you can. So I'm going to go into the car. I'm going to go upgrade. So we want to go ahead and skip this. This is fun. This is good for something real quick if you want to get in there with a friend, buy a new car, throw it into a class. But this is not going to be optimized by any means. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to start here with the performance and handling. I always buy the highest brakes. And by the way, I'm shooting for a upper C-class car here. So we have about 100 points to play with. We want the fully adjustable shocks, and we want it to be lower. We're going to buy the highest sway bar for the front. We're going to buy the highest one for the back. You can see our weight is down to 2709 already. That's a good thing. You want your weight low and your horsepower high, obviously. Even though this is going to add weight, this is a really important fixture to have. This makes your car very, very stiff in the corners. Makes it easier to handle. I know we put on a lot of weight here. We put on 80 pounds, but we also gain a couple of the IPs. So we go from 404 to 402. So our class is actually a little bit lower, and it is a very helpful item. I'm not going to buy the weight reduction yet because I'm not sure how much I'm going to be able to buy. I obviously want to buy the most weight reduction at this point. I would rather reduce the weight of the car than gain horsepower, but we'll come back to that. Can't forget. And then we'll go to the upgrade shot here. And the only thing that's required at this point is a differential. That is something that we need to make adjustable later. It doesn't really add any PI to the class either. And we can go back and fill those in as we need to. Make it a fully adjustable front, so we're going to grab the Forza front wing, and we're going to do the same thing with the rear. We want it to be fully adjustable. I would say you can buy these. Typically they don't help. Sometimes they add weight. But if you really want your car to look a little bit different than somebody else's, you can do that. I generally don't change the weight of the hood. It's only 5 pounds, and we can reduce weight somewhere else that'll be more helpful. Alright, so now that we have those parts purchased, I can go back and purchase the ones that I skipped. Because right now we're still at the $399. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce the weight fully. You know, if you're getting closer to the top of C, that you may not be able to do that. That might be one of the last things that you do. And now we're going to buy the clutch. We're going to go and buy the transmission because in previous Forzas, by putting the racing transmission on, you gained a lot more points. Now it's kind of a no-brainer. You can make this fully adjustable because it doesn't raise your PI by very much. And since we have a few more points left, I'll go ahead and reduce the weight here. Alright, so now we have all the parts from an adjustable standpoint that we want to do. Next thing is we want to buy a different wheel because we're going to change the way our wheels and tires are. Generally, to make more upgrades later, it's okay to add a little bit of weight here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these. There we go. That one is going to be... Is that the weight added? Why is it not showing my weight class? Oh, there we go. So it must be a break even. Yep, those are exactly the same. Okay. So we had heavy wheels to begin with, so I really don't need to do that. But since I like the look of them, I'll go ahead and grab those. And now we can make our wheels adjustable. So now you're going to see the picture. You see the wheels change size. We want the biggest wheel possible. Again, we're going to gain weight. This will go hand in hand with the tires that we put on here, the width of the tires that we put on here. So I'm going to increase both. And now I'm going to go to the rear tire. And as long as it isn't the drag slick, make sure you don't go to the last one if there's a drag slick back there, because then you actually lose. So we gain a little bit of weight, but we gain a lot of traction. So you'll see the lateral G's go from 118 to 121. If I go backwards, you'll see that that number will actually drop. There's a 120, it's be 120, and then probably 119. Yep. So as you go further right, the more traction you have. So we want to go ahead and buy that. And we'll do that same thing with the front. So the next one we want to do is we're kind of working our way backwards here to the compound. The compound may or may not take you over the limit that you want to do. So looks like I can't go up that high, so I'm going to go up to the highest level possible without putting any performance parts on at this point. So I'm going to grab these tires. They give us a higher grip. You see we go from 123 to 129. That's really good. And I purchased them, so away we go. So now all I'm doing is trying to fill in the gaps of the points I have left. And then again, you can go back to different bumpers and stuff like that if you want to. What I like to do now is go ahead and do some mild upgrades to the engine itself while trying to find the correct number. This is generally the last thing that I do. I want to make sure that I have points left over for that. Sometimes I get the top one, sometimes I don't. So I'm going to get as close to 500 as I can without going over. Yeah, I'm not having any luck. I think this one generally gets me close. There we go. So I'm going to grab that one for the 9 horsepower. So the only thing I have left is to fill in that last 3 points. And so close. We'll go and leave it at 499 for now. You kind of get the idea what I'm trying to do. You have to kind of mix and match some parts here for performance to get what you want. So one thing that I want to take a look at here is the weight of my car. I think overall has gone probably up since I started. But I want to kind of take an idea that it's where it's at. And the other thing you can do, even though we're at the 499, is you can go back to the main screen, look at your car, and you can see the weight, kind of the weight differential. That's another important part here. So if I go to My Cars, and I hit down on the directional pad, it kind of shows me everything that's really important to me. So I think the car started at 55%, and now we're down to 53%, so our weight balance on the car is a little bit different, so that's something to consider. Our horsepower is the same, so we're not too worried about that. And then our weight, I believe, went up a little bit. So now that I'm in there, I want to go ahead and tune the car. So I'm going to go back to upgrade. I'm going to go ahead and tune the car. All right, so there's some pretty hard, fast rules that you want to stick by here. The tire pressure is something that you actually have to drive to figure out what you wanted to do with it, because the problem is when you warm them up, that PSI really changes. Now with the bigger tires that I've selected, it usually isn't that big of a deal, but it's good to watch a replay to kind of see what kind of temperature they get up to, what kind of PSI they get up to, make sure everything's kind of balanced from the outer part of the wheel to the inner part of the wheel. And you can do that with the telemetry stuff. Generally, I keep it right at 30 with the wider tires. I generally just drop the first one down a little bit, and then I kind of go from there. So you see I really don't change too much on that part. The gearing is really something that you have to work with depending on the track that you're on. Usually it's not geared very well, so I'll go up to like maybe 475 just to start with, and then that'll help me get a little baseline going. The front camber is never ever close. I like to keep it as neutral as possible. Generally, if it's a stock tire that isn't much wider than normal, I'll keep it right at 0. If I have the wider tires on there, I add just 1, maybe 0.2 degrees to it. In this case, I'll just keep it as even as possible. This one's usually off. You want to usually get about the -1 area when you're doing kind of a setup to make the car handle. It's really important to understand that part of it, that the camber is kind of important for the way that it dives into corners, as well as the toe. The toe here is really important too. Generally, this is pretty neutral. You can stay right in there. I like to just kind of bump it up by a point or two. I'm going to leave that there. And then on the rear, I like to go opposite. So now the more these are opposite, is the more it'll dive into the corner. So if I increase the front toe, it'll dive more. And if I decrease the rear more, it'll oversteer more. So it is kind of a combination to make it dive into it a little bit. This one's always been kind of a standard since the very beginning. You can start anywhere between 4.7 and 5.0. I've seen pretty much the spectrum. I don't usually see much more than maybe a 5.2. It's one of those things where you kind of throw it into the middle and you hope you average it out, and then when you're tweaking it later, you can kind of mess with it then. The roll bars are pretty much even between the two usually. I like to bring it down a little bit since I'm trying to make a handling car. If I'm doing more of a speed car, I'll leave it up kind of in the neutral area. This is kind of a wild guess right at first, but I'm going to go and go right around 21. And then on the anti, I usually go a little bit below, so I'm going to go down to a couple points below it. I'll go 18. And we'll tweak those later if we need to. Just watching the lateral G's at the left as it kind of recalculates. You make sure it doesn't go out of whack. Make sure your numbers don't go up a lot, or your braking time or something like that. On the springs, this is actually a pretty good setting. When you get this out of the box, it's pretty good. So what I call this is a stiffer ride that it comes out with. So it's a little bit, again, a faster car. You're not going to be handling as much. So let's say you want it to handle a little bit better. What I'll do is I'll take it down a few points, and that's good enough for right now. And then in the rear, I like to take it down a lot because I need the back end to be soft and not to slide out. So I'll take probably about 100 points out of here to make it a stiffer or a softer ride so that the back end kind of holds. So I'm going to go about 525 on this one. And again, these are just starting points, and every car is going to vary a little bit. And this is a front engine rear-wheel drive car, so a lot of those beginning lines will change a little bit, your kind of baseline. I do like to lower the car a lot, but since I put the big springs on there already, the performance springs, it's already going to be low. If I go much lower, I'm going to be bottoming out. So I like to leave them even, 4.7 and 4.7, or if it was a 5.0, 5.0, I like to leave it even, but it's about, I'm going to say that's about a sixth of the way into the low area. I would stay there, and then if you bottom out, you might want to raise it. If you don't bottom out and you want to drop it, go ahead and drop it too. The rebound stiffness, so since we're trying to make this kind of a handling car, we're going to make it softer. So I'm going to pull this down to about a 7.0. I'm trying to figure out what's half here. I'm trying to play right in the middle. I'll leave it at 7.1. And then this one's going to be, the rear is always going to be a little bit softer than the front. So I'll take it maybe down a couple of points from there. So I'll make that a 5.1. That looks a little too much. So I'm going to go 5.2. And you get a feeling kind of where you put the dials as you go along. The rear bumper stiffness, I like to be, let's see, for the bump stiffness, I like to soften it up a little bit. This car's got to be able to take some of the uneven. It depends on the track. Again, if you're doing something that's not a lot of elevation, it's pretty flat, you can keep it pretty stiff, but I'm trying to make this kind of an all-around, so if I hit a Road-Atlanta or anything like that, there's a lot of bumps, I'm going to bump that down. And I always like to keep the rear softer than the front. I was going to make it about, yeah, that's 1.2 is not too bad. So again, you kind of look at the way the four bars line up, and it's usually this way. Usually the top one is to the furthest right, the middle two are about even, and then the bottom one is to the right even a little bit further. With the arrow, this is something that you're going to really want to play with on your own. I'm going to leave this just completely neutral at this point since I have all the adjustable wings. Now I may take this same tune, put it onto another car, put it all in the cornering if I'm going to use it as a cornering car, and then take it all the way out the other side. And I may even take the rear wing off too, if the car can handle not having a rear wing at all. And that would be for a speed car. Brake balance, I always start at 47%. And then I don't use ABS, at least not right now. If you do use ABS, start at 100. If you hit your brakes and your car starts to slide because you're hitting the brakes, bump it down. If it doesn't, go ahead and bump it up. You can look at the left on the simulation if it changes your stats or not. I'll generally go to start at about 85 without ABS. I'll go ahead and do ABS this time around and just go down a number here. Differential, This is something that changes depending on the configuration of the car. So front wheel drive, you're going to have front wheel drive, front engine, you're going to have standing at about 20 to 30% depending on how you want it to handle. I am doing a front engine rear drive car, so I actually have to take both of them into consideration. So I'm going to put them both at about even. I'm going to put them even, but I'm going to put them about in the middle, because I'm not sure how that's going to skid out or what it's going to do for me. But going back through here, let me go through these settings one more time, make sure I'm happy with them. Alright, I'm going to apply that. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a quick test drive. Let's see how this does. This is about a 2-minute track here. I'll go ahead and throw this on. So what I'm looking for is if I hit the brakes, does the car start skidding? If I don't see understeer or oversteer, I'm gonna just try to nail it down and really try to tweak it to the point where it's exactly where I want it. What I gave you right there is kind of a starting point. So first I got to heat up the tires because I really can't tell until I heat anything up. I hit the brakes and it did not slide out. It's not turning as sharp as I like, but like they said, the tires are still blue and cold over there. So what I'll generally do, and I'm just going to run one lap, what I would generally do is run about 4 or 5 laps, turn on the telemetry, take a look at the pressure of the tires, make sure I don't have them way off. They should be even all the way around. And that gearing is, I don't quite have the gearing right either, so. Yeah, it's a little bit off. I don't want to be so steep into the 6th gear there. So I hit the brakes and you saw it slide out and it's still sliding out. So I have a little bit of oversteer, but I think it was because of the brakes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out there and I'm going to reduce the brake pressure. Let's see how this handles here. It turns in pretty good. Holding that turn pretty well. Pretty happy with the way it's diving in. You could probably dive in a little bit more, but overall that's not too bad. Yeah, I definitely would want it to turn a little bit more. You can hear kind of the squealing of the tires as it turns. There's a braking turn coming up here at the very end. So I really get a good idea what's going on with the brakes. Yeah, see how it slid out there? So I definitely have over pressure on the brakes. And I think if I hit this real quick, I can show you a quick adjustment. We'll go to tune setup, and I'll go over to my brakes, and I'm going to drop it down. Let's do 5%. I usually do about 5% at a time. And then I dial it in from there. So I have one more turn at the bottom here that I'll finish up, and we'll see if it slides out this time. It's still a little bit, and then that may be a little bit more of the car itself. It's got a little bit of understeer to it. So anyway, that's kind of what it is in a nutshell, and then you just kind of tweak it from there. Every car is a little bit different. Remember the differences between front engine, rear engines, front wheel drive, all wheel drive, rear wheel drive, and each one of them is a little bit different. Now this, I guess, is the best case that I could give you with a front engine rear wheel drive. And if you guys like this, I'll make some more, and we'll go through the 4-wheel drive, all-wheel drives, and we'll go through the front-wheel drives as well. And then, there's a big difference between low horsepower and high horsepower too, where those settings come from. But if you want to make a decent C-class car and then just do a little bit of tweaking from there, there you have it. Thanks a lot for listening, guys, and we'll catch you later. Put in comments at the bottom, and I'll be glad to show you anything else that I could think of. Thanks.